Hey everybody, welcome back to episode 3 of the Crazy Monkey Midwest video blog. This is Matt from crazymonkeymidwest.com. And I know it's been a little while since the last post, and to be honest, I took a couple of tries at putting this video together, and I just wasn't really happy with how it came out, so sorry for the delay. And the reason for that is, if you remember, we're in episode 3 of our three-part series. 3 questions you need to answer for yourself if you really want to get the most out of your martial arts training. And the reason why I had to try to record this video a couple different times is because honestly I feel like question number 3, the one we're going to talk about today, is kind of the toughest one to answer, and I think it's the difficult one to think about or to wrap your head around. So we'll just kind of get right into it and see how it goes. So question number 3 is, how far do you want to go in martial arts? It can be kind of a tough question to answer for a lot of people, and I think even just the notion of having an answer to this can be a little difficult for people to wrap their heads around, because I think if you're a martial artist or if you're someone who's interested in martial arts, then chances are you're the kind of person that doesn't like to put limits on what you're capable of or what you want to achieve. We don't want to put a ceiling on what we're able to do. In fact, that's why a lot of us get so wrapped up and so involved in martial arts, is because it's such a transformative thing that helps you really break through your limitations and break past those limitations. So it seems like what I'm saying is that you should put a limit on how far you're going to go or how high you're going to take this, and then just leave it at that. And that's not really what I'm saying. To me, what this is about is just knowing what your path in the martial arts is going to look like. And that can help you answer a lot of other questions, like, it can help you understand, first and foremost, are you surrounding yourselves with the right people, and are you in the right environment based on your path in the martial arts and where you want to go with it. And ultimately, what you're going to hear me talk about today is, at the end of the day, this is not about putting a limit on what you're able to do and saying, well, I'm only going to be able to go this far and that's where I'm going to stop. It's not really about that. It's really ultimately about being true to who you are and being secure in who you are as a martial artist, because there are a lot of different kinds of martial artists out there, and the bottom line is you want to be who you are and not try to pretend to be something you're not. So when we talk about how far do you want to go in the martial arts, I think there's kind of 2 parameters that are really easy to think about. So you could say, how far do I want to go in terms of these 2 things? The first is knowledge, and the second is performance. So we'll talk about knowledge first. So knowledge meaning like the amount of information that you want to take in as a martial artist. There's infinite amount of information out there that you can learn in the martial arts. There's all different martial arts styles, all different kinds of programs, different teachers within each. Everyone has a different way to teach. Everyone has their own curriculum. There's all this information out there. Not to mention, DVDs, online courses, all these kind of things that are available to us now. And it's okay to say, this is what I want to learn. I'm not interested so much in things outside of this. So, because we're in the age of mixed martial arts, for example, there's this notion kind of floating around out there that if you're not training everything, if you're not being well-rounded, or you're not really training in a mixed martial art kind of process, if you're trying to specialize in one thing, then you're not a real martial artist. And nothing could really be further from the truth. Certainly it depends on your purpose, your goal. If you are training to compete in mixed martial arts, well then obviously you need to have a stand-up game, a clinch game, a ground game, right? If you're, I think, training for really honestly training for self-defense, then you do need to have a certain amount of well-roundedness to your skill set. But beyond that, to me, it just comes down to, what are you really most passionate about, and what really fires you up about getting on the mat? Those are the things that you want to focus on in your training. You don't necessarily have to keep piling on more and more information and adding more and more systems and all these kind of things if that's not what you want to do. On the other hand, if you just love to, I call it geeking out on the martial arts. I do it all the time. I geek out. I just want to, sometimes I just want to learn everything that's out there, and there's times that I spend doing that, either at seminars or watching DVDs or scouring YouTube and looking at different things. And it's fun for me, and it's something that I enjoy doing. So for me, the amount of knowledge that I kind of want to gain in the martial arts, or that I've gained, is maybe a little bit broader than what some of you are into, and that's totally fine. The key is having that understanding of, well, how far do I really need to take this? How much information is really important for me to have? Because you don't need to know everything. You don't need to learn everything. Find what you're most passionate about and then learn it, and then pursue that. And if you don't want to go outside of that, that's totally cool. That's totally fine, as long as it matches up with your goals. So the second thing is performance. And this is where we got to be a little more particular about how far do you want to go. And in my opinion, unless you're a competitor, if you're a competitor, it's kind of easy to answer this question if you think about it, because you could say, well, I'm interested in competing, but I do it recreationally. So I'm only going to compete on kind of those terms in tournaments or amateur competition or whatever. But if you said, my goal is to be a professional and I'm going to take this as far as I can possibly go, it's important to know that so that you can pursue that. If you're interested in performance, I put myself in this category. I'm very interested in performance and improving my game, but I don't compete. So if you don't compete, sometimes it can be a little harder to figure out, well, how far do I want to take it? Because there's no competition that you're entering, so there's not a level of, well, I'm going to compete at this level versus all the way at the top. So how do I answer this question if it's not a competition thing? Ultimately, the way I answer this part of the question about performance is, what am I willing to give up? So what price am I willing to pay for this aspect, for the performance aspect? We pay a price to train martial arts, no matter what. And no matter how far you want to go, what path you're on, there's a price to pay to get to where you want to go. So, we already talked about investment in time. We talked about that last time. Certainly for most of us, it's a monetary investment. You have to pay for lessons, you got to pay to train somewhere, gym membership, whatever. You also pay, and it's an investment of your health and your physical well-being. Certainly you can get that health and you can get a return on that investment by getting in greater shape, but particularly if your goal is to push the bounds of performance, you're also risking. So remember, every investment you make, there's a risk associated with that investment. And the risk is that you're not going to get out what you put into it. So there is a potential of sacrificing your health, getting injured. So for me, that's how I decide how far I want to take my training and how far I want to take the performance aspect. For me, I've had a lot of injuries already. I'm still relatively young, and I've had a ton of injuries. I would really love it if I could go the rest of my career and not have any more. It's probably not going to happen. I'll probably still get some more injuries. But I know at this point in my life, at this point in my training, it's not worth it to me to risk my health. So there are certain environments that I won't go into. There's certain types of people I won't train with. And there's certain types of training that I'm just not interested in doing because I'm putting my health at risk, or I'm over-investing. I'm putting more into it than I'm willing to risk. Okay? So I hope that makes sense. You also invest in relationships in martial arts. So this is important to think about. You invest in the people you're training with, and they invest in you. It's again kind of the reason why I tend to steer clear of the kind of hyper-competitive areas or types of people, because I've often seen in those environments, it's not always the case, but I've seen it happen in those environments where people view their training partners as almost disposable, and they train on each other rather than with each other. So what happens is, they'll train with somebody, they get injured, and no big deal, there's somebody else that's healthy sitting against the wall I can call out and train with next. So I don't really like to do that because, again, my health is very important to me. I don't want to risk additional injuries, so I tend not to I don't train with those people. So lastly, the reason why this is all important, and kind of to sum this whole thing up, is if you can answer these questions, it lets you know who you should be around, what kind of people you should have around you, and what environment you should be in. Because if you look around you and you see, for example, like in the example I just gave, you see people getting injured a lot and risking their health and all that kind of thing, and having a cavalier attitude toward injury, but that's not what you want to get out of it, then you're probably training in the wrong place. You may need to find somewhere else to train. On the other hand, if you are hard charging and you want to be a competitor and you want to compete at a high level, but no one around you is competing, you're probably not going to get to where you want to go. So you would need to find kind of the appropriate group, the appropriate environment to train in relative to your goals, relative to the how far you want to go. It's pretty self-explanatory. So, and then lastly, just to sum this up and finish off this series, ultimately, the theme that I've had kind of running through this whole series of 3 questions to answer for yourself is answer it for you. Answer it for yourself. Come up with what you want to get out of martial art, what you want to invest in martial art, from what your goal is, how much time you have, how far you want to go. And be true to that and honor that in your training. So that's kind of the theme that I've had running through this whole thing. And the worst thing that can happen is you are trying to be something that you're not. I unfortunately see it a little too often in the martial arts, where people will kind of hold on to an identity that's either based on they're imitating someone else. Maybe they're in kind of a hyper-competitive fighter environment, and they're not a fighter and they don't want to be a fighter, but they kind of feel like they can be like one or portray one because they hang around people. I don't feel like that's the healthiest way to go. I think it's better just to understand who you are, understand what you want, and be true to it and live it out in your training. Ultimately, there's a difference between, I see this as a difference between imitation and inspiration. It's fine, it's totally great to look at fighters or military people or all these folks and take inspiration from them. I do it all the time. I see people who are devoting 20 hours a day to training. I look at professional fighters, I look at military, and I take a lot of inspiration and motivation from them. But I do not for a second believe that I am the same as them. So I don't try to imitate them, I take inspiration from them. And I think that's just a much healthier mindset. So to cap it off, I hope you've taken some time to consider these 3 questions, and I really do believe that if you take the time, think about your answers, think about it carefully, it'll really help you get the maximum benefit out of your martial art training and save you time, save you injuries, and just make sure that you're really getting out what you want to get out of it. So I hope you've enjoyed it. If you have any questions on anything that I've talked about, or if you have suggestions of things you'd like me to talk about in a future video blog, contact me on Facebook, Crazy Monkey Midwest Martial Arts through Facebook. You can also, of course, go to our website, crazymonkeymidwest.com, and fill out the contact form there, give us your information, and I will get back to you as quickly as possible. So again, thanks for listening, thanks for watching, and best of luck to you in your training.